Hi and welcome to Different Leaf, a show for new and experienced cannabis consumers. I'm Brit Smith. This episode, we're continuing our story of the Annaboto, the at-home cannabis growing robot made by Boundless Robotics in Boston. Winner of last year's Boston University Cannabis Startup competition, the Annaboto is an artificially intelligent robot that's making it easier for people to grow their own hydroponic marijuana at home with the push of a button. In Part 1 of our Annaboto coverage, which came out on June 17th, we went to visit Boundless Robotics to see how the Annabotos were being made. The team was kind enough to let me and Different Leaf's production manager Jen take home our own Annabotos to experience what it's like growing weed at home with AI. We left off with our robot weed plants just starting to flower. This week, we're going to talk about the process of harvesting, drying, and curing. And then we're going to roll up our first homegrown artificially intelligent marijuana and see how she smokes. Finally, I'll check back in with Boundless Robotics founder Palme to talk about the intersection of cannabis and technology, how the Annaboto has been developed over just the past few months, and what we can expect for the future of growing with AI. Robot-grown cannabis. So here's what we're dealing with. The Annaboto essentially looks like a big plant pot, and it has a modern-looking three-legged floor lamp that sits over the top of it. But inside both the plant pot and the lamp, there's a lot of smart technology that does all the hard work of growing hydroponic cannabis. It tracks the water levels and the pH, the temperature and the humidity, and it has a cartridge full of the essential nutrients, which can be adjusted by the Boundless Robotics team from their HQ in Boston. They actually watch the growth via a tiny camera in the lamp above, which snaps pictures every 15 minutes, so you do have help visually tracking the plant's progress all the way until it's time to harvest. So it was about week 10 of letting the Annaboto do its thing. The flowers were budding nicely. The trichomes, which are the tiny clear mushroom-looking glands on the flowers that hold the cannabinoids or the cannabis medicine, were just starting to get cloudy, signifying that it was a few weeks away from being ready to harvest and dry. And then... I am so clumsy. I was just leaning down to put the water in the Annaboto, and I've knocked one of the plant arms and it is split. It's broken. It's got like 4 or 5 buds above this break. I really want to save them. I wonder if this is just a situation where I'm like, all right, it cut itself. I'm going to hang and harvest it. It's only the 1st of June, so it's a little early for harvesting, but I kind of accidentally harvested this one with my elbow. It's seeping a little bit, so yeah, it's gonna have to get chopped. Well, I guess this is gonna be accidentally my first mini harvest. So let's see how this goes. And about an hour later, I knocked off another big branch. Yeah, so within a few days, I decided it was about time to harvest the rest of the plant and officially start the drying and curing process. One thing I was not prepared for was just how sad it was to hack away a plant that I'd been growing from this tiny seedling just a few months before to this huge, thick, beautiful blossoming tree that I'd really come to love seeing and smelling every morning in my dining room. So I've just cut down my first plant with Annaboto. It felt a lot like murder, I'll be honest. I've grown really attached to this plant, so piecing it up feels very strange, but, after sawing off the trunk for a good few minutes, I've now separated it out into its stalks and its different branches, and I'm chopping down the fan leaves and the sugar leaves, and it looks like I've got a pretty good haul. So now we dry for about a week, maybe a little less, and then onto the curing and smoking process. Once she was chopped into parts and I clipped off all the remaining leaves, I started drying out the branches of weed. Drying means grabbing about a dozen clothes hangers and a bunch of twine and clothespins and hanging each individual stalk upside down to dry out over the following week in a hallway closet. The buds quickly shriveled up and dried out, and once their twigs were snapping, I knew the drying phase was done and it was time to move on to curing my weed. Curing is the essential process of storing your dry buds in jars to help bring out the flavors and smells, and it stops the cannabis from tasting like straight grass when you smoke it. Curing involves burping the jars once a day by opening them up for about 20 minutes to release the moisture and let the oxygen in, and that gives the weed a smoother smoke. The Annaboto actually came with a couple of mason jars to put the buds in, and some Boveda humidity packs, which helps maintain the ideal humidity inside the jars. Finally, about 4 months after getting the Annaboto machine into my house, my first robot-grown weed was ready to smoke. So I called over my smoking buddy, and we lit it up. So tell me what you think, if you think it's ready to smoke, because
I don't know if I've ever answered no to that question.
I have a feeling it might be ready.
Yeah,
but it feels kind of springy.
Yeah.
I don't want it to crumble and be crunchy, so I don't want to leave it too much longer. I had to harvest it a bit early because I accidentally knocked a couple branches off.
Oh.
So it was harvested slightly early, but I think it will still taste good. Smells like citrus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a pretty big bud, actually.
Yeah, that one's a big one.
See what kind of size buds we got.
The bigger ones are going to be the ones that were more towards the base.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Wow, look at that, baby.
Yeah.
Hey,
oh, yeah.
That's the size of my finger.
Yeah.
That's a good size bud. Dark green, light green, lots of little hairs, lots of little crystals. It's pretty dense in the middle, it's tight. So I'm going to roll one because I think it's the purest way to taste it.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's squishy and it's a little bit sticky when you touch it.
Yeah.
And it's ground up. It's quite nice.
Yep.
So I guess when you have the cloudier trichomes, it's, stronger. It's better. They're not super cloudy, but...
You cut that process off when you actually trim it, right? That's not the curing process.
Right.
That's you grow until you reach that point. That's the identifier, right?
That's the sign that it's ready to harvest. It's when it's a little cloudy before it turns brownish orange. Because if the trichomes turn to a brown orange, so it's too old, and apparently that's when it gets heavier in CBD. So the internet says.
There it is.
Tiny, tiny little joint.
What kind is it again?
This is Girl Scout cookies.
Girl Scout cookies.
Have you ever tried it before?
I think I have, yeah.
Let's see what we're meant to be feeling. According to Leafly, Girl Scout cookies is supposed to be more energizing than calming. It's an indica-dominant hybrid strain made by crossing OG Kush with Durban poison. This popular strain is known for producing a euphoric effect followed by waves of full-body relaxation. One hit will leave you feeling happy, hungry, and stress-free. Okay. All right. Sparking it. White smoke. Ooh, it's light. It's really gentle. That's not a harsh smoke at all. That's not bad.
It tastes really good. It's smooth.
It is, isn't it? That's a smooth smoke.
Yeah, it's really not harsh at all.
Really gentle. It tastes nice. Not bad, though.
No, not at all.
Not bad at all. This machine automates the growing process for you, but it does not automate the harvesting and the drying and the curing, and there is some art to that.
Right.
I think so. You do need to learn a little bit. Let's try this. Try a bong.
Oh, there you go.
Ooh, I can taste it in the water pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tastes more lemony.
Accentuates it.
Yeah, I'd love to get this stuff tested. See what we made. Some of these I didn't trim so well. You can see when I was getting tired. And I was
yeah, for sure.
Fuck it.
You start off so
What do I
meticulous,
do?
and then I remember by the end, I'm just like, I don't care, I'll smoke a stick. I keep saying it, but I think it's the Christmas tree approach versus doing canopy, because these ones just getting started, they were
sticks.
up towards the top.
Yes.
These ones that were nice and dense, they were on the bottom, but still getting that good light, beefing up that whole time. These ones were just starting.
I can tell. Yeah. So this time round, I think we're gonna do the canopying it, spreading it out, and letting it stay low.
Basically one level.
Yeah.
You just want one level.
With the last plant, it was getting so big that the ones at the top were really shadowing buds at the bottom.
Right.
And if there wasn't that shadow in place, they would all have gotten more.
Right, yeah. Then each one becomes like half an ounce.
You get like quality over quantity.
Yeah.
I did just want to see what it did by itself.
Oh, so that was amazing to watch it.
Wasn't it crazy?
How fast it grew up like that. I would have never guessed that.
No, insane. It was probably after week 5. It just ballooned, like it sprung up. So we've got to name this one again.
What was the last one?
THC3P grow.
Yeah.
While I was effortlessly growing pot at home and gifting my weed to everyone I knew, the team behind the Annaboto is continuing its work to better the machine, fix any bugs that they'd found during the beta test, and get the newest version out to its users. So in early August, I went back to their offices in Boston and gave them a bunch of feedback, and I picked up my new Annaboto 2.0. We have upgraded, all right. I went to see the Annaboto team a couple of days ago, and they gave me this brand new version. It wasn't too hard to put together. There are pretty self-explanatory places to screw in the legs. This looks really good inside my home. It's got 3 long silver legs, and it actually just looks like a trendy beige IKEA lampshade on top. And the machine has its regular wood white finish on the exterior and then the black top. So this time, instead of Girl Scout cookies, I'm going to be growing Tangie. Tangie is one of my favorite strains. It's a very uplifting, citrus-smelling kind of euphoric strain. So I'm looking forward to this. Now I'm on to my second AI homegrown, and I've been trying this trimming technique that my friend had been telling me about called topping, which is where the grower cuts off the top of their plant as it starts to get tall, forcing it to grow sideways instead so that all the buds stay at one level and get the same amount of energy and nutrients, and they really bulk up. So far, my second plant, which has officially been named Ava Green, is doing way better than my first plant. Maybe it's from the topping, maybe it's from the new lights in the lamp, or maybe it's because I have this team of engineers who are watching my plant from Boston and upping the nutrients to help it grow as big as it can. This is the silent added power of growing at home with a robot. You do have a virtual team helping your plant microdose nutrients the whole time. That's doable right now during the beta testing phase, but how will Boundless Robotics scale that service when the machine is inevitably available nationwide or even across the world? What does the future look like for growing at home with robotics? And what does Boundless Robotics have up their sleeves for the next generation of Annabotos? To find out, I checked in with Boundless Robotics founder Carl Palme.
There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I've been delivering a lot of the machines, which has been really nice. I mean, getting to see people vibrate from excitement, right? when I show up, and that's one of the things that keeps me very engaged with the product, because I think, how often do you have the opportunity to sell a product that people get truly excited about and where you can really form a community around this? And that's what's been so exciting about this. On the other hand, we're still trying to run the business. It feels like I don't have enough hours in the day. And, I have my kids and my family, and I'm still trying to figure out how to fit my life into the business.
The entrepreneurial struggle.
It is.
Let's talk about what's changed in the product process.
So the problem is, our biggest bottleneck is the 3D printing. Because of COVID and because of everything that has happened in the past few years, we decided to go with 3D printing because that way we would be in charge of our production and we wouldn't have to rely on supply chain issues. And I'm sure you remember the Suez Canal and all the stuff that happened last year with supply chain disruptions. So we were lucky in that because we owned our 3D printers and our production, we were able to do this. We were able to also go through 4 generations of design in just 2 years, which I think is very incredible. And it really allowed us to go talk to customers, get their feedback, and incorporate that design very quickly. And so that's been great. But it has also become our biggest bottleneck. Printing a machine takes about 7 days, and then we have to post-process it and assemble it. And so that still takes a lot of time. Having said that, we have talked to a lot of people who make molds. And just, this is more the manufacturing and operations, but we've talked to a lot of people and we think we can get it down to making one machine every 30 to 60 minutes per person on a line.
Wow.
And that was always the idea behind the company. We designed everything to scale. So once we buy the tooling, we can actually, we can just add more people to the manufacturing line and grow as quickly as the market demands. And so that's where we're stuck right now.
That leads me beautifully to my next question, which is how do you scale something like this when you provide services from, the printing and the manufacture and the design on that side of it, all the way to like somebody's actually watching my cannabis plant grow with me and they're helping me with the nutrients. And how do you scale something like that? Do you still think that's possible?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of artificial intelligence. And so essentially we automate as much as we can to make all of these processes simpler. And so on the one end, from the user perspective, they're seeing this plant grow and you think you have a botanist looking at your plant on a daily basis. But really what we're doing is we're feeding all the information that our customers are providing, that we are providing with the help of experts, and we're creating an artificial intelligence that monitors your plant for you, and it makes it scalable so that no matter where you are in the world or what it is that what cultivar you're growing, our technology can take that and actually make it so that you can grow very well. We are doing interesting things, like, for example, with you topping the plant. That is something that we have not done very much in the past. And so there has to be a human in the loop that's looking at how the plant is growing and adjusting the recipe so that we learn from that. And with every single plant that we grow, we learn. And the beauty of this distributed system that we've created is that every single plant that we grow in our system allows our intelligence to be a lot smarter. And so, and I think you've seen this, right? Between the first plant that you grew and the second plant that you grew in the same exact environment, it's growing that much better. That is kind of the beauty of this. With every single plant that we grow, our system is only going to get better. And like I said, we designed this for scale. So right now, we have 75 machines in the field, but in the future, when we have 75,000 machines in the field, we are going to rely on these automation tools to make it all possible.
So a couple of things that have changed between the first Annaboto that I got and this new one. There's a new lamp. What has changed with the lamp technology, and how is that impacting the plant? Now there's two different lights. There's like a white one and there's a red one. What's going on there?
So the original lamp, if you remember, only had the one light. With this second light, we've gone to two different spectra of light, so two different colors of light. One that is helpful when the plant is growing, and the other one that is more helpful when the plant is flowering. And what's nice about this is we can actually adjust the intensity of the lights to help with, like, for example, I don't know, you remember the previous plant that you grew, it grew pretty tall and pretty bushy. Now we can adjust the light to make it grow up to a point where we feel comfortable, and then we crank up the flowering light. So the plant is a little bit smaller in height, but we can get a lot more flower out of it. And so that is one thing that has changed. The other thing is this lamp that you now have has the odor management system. Right. And that is a really big deal for us because we hope that our customers grow in their living rooms, right? That's part of the normalization process. And education process, but not everybody likes the smell, and so we have to add a solution, and your new lamp has that solution, and with the active carbon filter and everything. And I also think it's a more aesthetically pleasing lamp, which also helps with having it in your living environment.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think it looks cool. It looks kind of modern. With regards to the odor control, honestly, because I live with it, I don't smell it. Maybe it's just like I live in my house and you kind of get nose blind to things, But even when I have people come over, they say that at least at this point, which is about 4 or 5 weeks in, they can't smell it yet. So I've really just been using it so I can smoke next to the machine and it sucks up my smoke.
And has it been filtering it? Because that is, awesome. That's great. That's what
it sucks it up into the legs of the lamp and it just sort of whooshes it up to the fan at the top.
It is an added benefit for sure. Yeah, we thought about that. I mean, if we see people growing the plant in their living room, the lamp is going to be close to them. And if it can act as a secondhand smoke filter, then yes, we've added another benefit to having this machine in your house.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about the experience of actually having a cannabis plant living next to you in your house every day, especially as somebody who works from home. Just how enjoyable that's been. It's been really easy. it's been sort of the least high maintenance thing that I own. Like, it takes care of itself completely. Everything else in my house like needs cleaning or needs fixing or needs feeding, but this thing just water once a week. And that's it. It does its own thing. It looks gorgeous. I see changes day to day to day. It's really fun to watch. And it's just over like a 3-month span that you see it going from this tiny little seedling to this 6-foot tree. Well, at least my first one was a 6-foot tree. The second one, I've been topping it, as we've said, and it's sort of keeping it lower. But even that, every day I get to go up to it and interact with it and see how it's changed. And now I'm trying to get it to grow sideways, so I've got some ropes sort of tied around to guide it. And I get to interact with it every day. I get to move it and touch it. And I don't know, it's just an incredibly enjoyable thing not to have to go down into my basement, into a tent, and like sit down there in the dark and then like lock it away. And I get to see the difference between morning and night. And even then, it does grow. So it's been a really enjoyable experience that I just don't think anybody has thought about before, bringing it out of the depths.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how I like to think about technology. I mean, technology tends to solve a lot of problems, but if you don't make it easy and you don't make the experience pleasurable, you don't talk about it, right? I mean, I like one of my favorite analogies is the Nest thermostat. It's a thermostat. Who would ever get excited about a thermostat, right? But it's
Yeah.
like now it's a staple when you buy a home. They say, oh, it has a Nest thermostat, and that's because they've really managed to solve a lot of problems and they have a beautiful experience. And for us, we wanted to do something similar. I mean, as an engineer, I find the plant to be beautiful. It's very symmetric. I like how it grows. I like all the points. I mean, it's just a beautiful plant to see grow. From an experience standpoint, you're right. I mean, you get to see it from a seedling to this beautiful bush with flowers, and the flowers are fascinating, and it all happens in the span of 3 months. And then, you name it. A lot of our customers name their plants, which I love, right? I mean, it really creates that connection with the plant.
Yeah.
And then you have to harvest it. And that's also kind of an interesting thing that I think as humans we have forgotten, right? I mean, we lived in farms, we had to kind of prepare our own food, things like that. And now that we live in cities, we just forget that there's this cycle of life, and the plant grows and you name it and it's beautiful and it's part of your life. And then you have to kill it and then you have to harvest it. And because that is what you want at the end of the day, it's the flower that you're going to consume, and you get to start the whole cycle again. And I think that is very rewarding. I love it. And obviously at the end of the day, you get this flower and you know exactly what went into it, right? All the love, all the light, all the water, everything that went into that plant, and then you get to consume it, and hopefully that is also a beautiful experience because you're consuming something that you grew, and I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, I agree. Upon consuming my own homegrown AI weed, I was pretty proud of it. I didn't have to do much to grow it, but I felt like I made an emotional connection with the thing. I sang to it most mornings. I named it and cared for it and sent photos of it to everybody I knew. Like I was this proud mama, and I was pretty proud of how it came out. I've read a lot of articles that just slam robo-grown weed. They're like, you just can't do it as well as humans. You don't have that feel for it. But the thing is with the Annaboto is it was actually pretty good weed. Like, of course, it wasn't the stuff you'll get at dispensaries, but it rivaled the homegrown weed that I had grown before by myself, looking with my own eyes and analyzing the pH with my own equipment. Like, it did better than I did. And I'd grown 3 times before, and I was not learning as fast as this robot is learning.
Well, and what you said is really interesting because there are other automated solutions, but I think the approach that all the other companies took is to enclose the plant and make it invisible to you. And yes, I mean, that feels very sterile, that's just like, this is this thing doing its thing. I don't care about it. But we, and this is something that we learned very early on when we did our market research. It's people wanted to have that relationship with the plant. And that's why we designed it to be open. And we did have to create a lot of solutions with the light and with the odor management to make it, you have pets and these lights are pretty bright. But we had to design it in a way so that it would be safe for kids, it would be safe for adults, it would be safe for pets. The odor management, if you don't like the odor, we had to manage that. But it was all around having that experience with you growing the plant and making it a part of your life. And I think that is what makes a difference. And yes, it makes it taste better, I think, because you did grow it, and part of you is in that plant. And I think that is something that as a community of people, you get to share that with your friends, you get to share that with the closest people in your life, and it is something that you did. And I think I agree. It's very powerful, I think, and that feeling does not go away, Brit. I mean, I've probably grown 20 plants in the course of like the past 5 years, and every single plant has its own uniqueness to it, and I fall in love with all of them. And I can probably tell you each one of the plants that I've grown in Annaboto, what went into it, what was hard about it, what was fun about it. Just because it has become such an important part of my life. And also a lot of our customers say the same thing. I mean, as soon as they finish growing one plant, they immediately want to start growing the next one, because it does become such an important and powerful component of, I think, the people who are interested in growing.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive experience to go through. It changed the feeling of my house. I started putting more plants around my house. And now instead of having fake plants, I'm back to having real plants and feeling like, actually, I can take care of these things. I will say it was weird the day after I'd cut it down, because I was used to coming upstairs every morning and seeing this big tree greet me. And then I had to sort of live with the memory that I had chopped my baby down and cut it up and dried it, and it was hanging in my closet, and it was quite a grotesque feeling. That morning was very lonely. Like, I just stared at the space where it was, like, oh.
Yeah.
But, the drying process, the curing process, that's the bit where you get to disconnect from the weed as a plant and connect again to it as a medicine, and think about it as now, we're processing it so that it can be used for something good. And I really like that cycle. And you're right, I wanted to start the next one straight away. I wanted to get a new seed in there and get really excited about the new one. So it's been a really fun experience, and I'm excited to see how it goes with topping. It looks like she won't slow down. Like, I can't tie it down fast enough. But I'm doing my best,
Yeah, no, and I see all the flower sites. They look great. I mean,
Yeah.
it looks like it grew so quickly that it tore.
Yes, yeah, it did. I think I was probably putting too much strain on it, trying to separate it.
Yeah, but those are the things that we need to learn about, right? And so that we can, now that we have that experience, we can communicate that to other customers who want to do the same thing. And eventually we can add a technology layer on top of that, so that we can tell people, all right, this is what you should expect in this week. And if you want to top, this is what you should be expecting in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm glad it's working out for you.
So let's talk about the future of the Annaboto. What do you think you might change, add? What's been your feedback so far, and what's it looking like from here on out?
So I think the feedback has been very positive. I think people are very excited about the hardware. They really like the hardware, how it looks. Going back to our previous conversation, I think the feedback that we received is people want to have some sort of like easy, medium, hard level settings to growing a plant. Because yeah, on the one hand, people want it easy. They just want it to grow. They don't want to pay any attention to that. And so we have to have a solution for that. On the other hand, like you, I would say you're in the middle hardness level where you're trying to be a little bit more involved. You're thinking about topping. You know what topping is. Eventually, there might be a hard level setting where not only do you want to really get into topping, you want to get into training, you want to do a lot, you want to be a lot more involved with the plant. And so we have to think about all the layers of technology that want to be in between that to make it easy for you. We've also been talking to a lot of people in Europe. I think the European market is very interesting because I think Europeans by and large are a lot more homeopathic. They care more about organic products. And the weather in Europe is a lot more similar to what we have here in the Northeast. And so the time for growing is very limited. And so you want to have indoor solutions and you want to have things that fit in small apartments. And so that's why I think starting in Boston was very critical for us, because it is as close to Europe as I think it gets. And so when we think about the future of Annaboto, we really look at Europe for that. We're also talking to some greenhouses because the data that we're collecting could be licensed for greenhouses where now, you can automate a lot of these processes and not have to worry so much about the different cultivars that you're trying to grow and just making sure that they grow automatically. But eventually we'd like to get into growing any type of plant. And we're already testing that in the office. We're growing some habaneros and some jalapenos and things like that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we can grow anything we want. It is optimized for cannabis. But I think the future is wide open for us. I mean, we really can do so many different things, and it really depends on the market feedback that we get and the market opportunities that we see.
That gets me thinking about what the future could be for the intersection of cannabis and technology in general, and how robotics can start to help play a part in mass indoor grows, and maybe even in sort of monitoring outdoor grows like they do at the moment with drones, to monitor big fields of agricultural crops.
That's my dream, right? If people can grow 5% of their food, that would have such a positive impact on the world. Just because I think there's a lot more people in the world, people are living longer, more people are moving to cities, and at some point, and we're already kind of seeing it today, getting that food, getting those supplies to people is going to get more and more difficult. And so if we can get people to produce their food right at the source of consumption, we avoid all the middle processes where you're just growing and you're eating. And growing 5%, I think, is a really, really good goal that is pretty attainable. We can do it with our technology. And I think it's something that with the Annaboto, most people, or with Annaboto similar like technologies, a lot of people can actually do that. And that's the dream. And that's where we're trying to get to. The thing about cannabis is I think a lot of the innovation in the agricultural technology space is going to come from cannabis because it's exciting, because the flowers and the plant is expensive. And so that is going to fund a lot of innovation in this space. And I think we already see that in a lot of places. But yes, I think eventually a lot of this is going to translate into other crops as well.
That's very exciting, and it's been so exciting to experience this on the ground floor with you guys as you develop it. Thank you so much for letting us follow along as you go through this experience. You guys can read more about my experience in the full issue of Different Leaf, the magazine, which comes out in mid-October. Thank you so much, Carl, for everything, for joining us today and for taking us along this incredible journey of growing with AI. It's really been a very cool experience.
On the contrary, Brit, thank you so much. I mean, your feedback has been so valuable, and it's just been so much fun to be part of this. And I'm just grateful for everything that you and Different Leaf, it's incredible to get people as excited as I am about this. I don't think your listeners are looking at me, but I'm beaming with excitement, and I just want to make sure that translates into the podcast.
Oh yeah, we're both feeling the excitement over here, pal. You can read about my experience growing with AI in the upcoming fall issue of Different Leaf, the magazine, which will be available October 15th at differentleaf.com. Or you can go to our website and find the subscribe and shop tab to find your nearest in-person retailer that sells the magazine in real life. That's differentleaf.com. Next week, it's our third edition of the Queer Cannabis Club, and we'll be chatting to Andrea Brooks of Sava, a queer women and Latinx founded cannabis company with a goal of creating a more progressive, legal, and inclusive industry. Be sure to follow us on social media at Different Leaf and at different_leaf. And you can find me on social media at Brit the British. And remember, you can buy all of our issues of Different Leaf, the magazine, at differentleaf.com.